LEGO fans, and welcome into the first ever episode of Brick Hour Time Capsule. I am your host, JJ, otherwise known as Langster Builds on Instagram. With me, as always, my co-host, Cameron, otherwise known as Cameron Studios.
How's it going, everybody?
And also with us, because you all know from the other episode, we will have guests for all of these episodes, is our good friend Scott from the Lug, from ROCLUG. He is back after the Transformers episode. Welcome back, Scott.
Good evening, everybody.
So for those of you who do not get to see our Q&A episode and don't know what this is, Brick Hour Time Capsule is going to be a monthly series, a retrospective where we look back on retired themes, and we're breaking them down into three separate categories. Basically, what is the theme? Kind of just general information. How long did it run? How many sets did it have? Also, just kind of like lore behind the theme as well. The second part of the video is going to very much be where we talk about what made the sets great, what they did well, what were interesting design choices, things like that. And also on the flip side, what they didn't do well, were there some weaknesses, things like that. The third and final part of the video is going to be the segment where we talk about the theme's lasting legacy. How is it remembered? Why was it discontinued? If we have answers or reasons for that, and basically just remembering and looking back on a theme. Was it remembered fondly? Was it remembered poorly? This first ever episode, we had to think of something that people would know that wasn't too big, but was a nice, easy way to guide us into this. So we decided, what better way than with the last original Lego space theme that Lego's ever done, considering they've been going crazy with space lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Galaxy Squad. And Scott is here because he was quite the Galaxy Squad fan and is still quite the Galaxy Squad fan. So
I am.
having him here for that will be perfect.
Because personally, when it was brought up to pick Galaxy Squad, I remembered it, but I didn't remember thinking much of it at the time. So it was a little bit after like Marvel and DC were really in the swing of things with their sets, and like that was my sole focus.
Mhm.
So it's cool to kind of go back to look at the set, and I'm like, man, I wish I got some of these sets when they came out.
Yeah, for me it was I had just gotten back into Lego
Oh,
the year Galaxy Squad had come out. And it was that you dip your toe in the water and then the water reaches out, pulls you in.
Mhm.
So it went from it was the Pirate Ambush set for Lord of the Rings for the boat.
yeah.
The big
That was
boat.
the first thing I bought when I came back because I had found it at Target for like $30 on clearance. It was 100 and something and I got it for $30. So we got snowed in a blizzard, much like the night we're recording right now, where it's
Mhm.
blowing like crazy outside. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna finally build this thing. And I sat there for 6 hours and I built a boat. And then, my wife looked at me and she saw the look on my face. She's like, "Oh no, you're hooked." And I'm like, I had such a fun time. And, it brought me back to when I was younger, when I had tons of Legos when I was much younger. I had to give them up for college and all that jazz. But, at that point, I was about 32, 33, right in that target area where they're really aiming for right now. So I started, I had been a collector of many other things. Like we talked on Transformers. I'm a huge Transformers guy.
Mhm.
So when I would go to Toys R Us, I would go to the Transformers aisle. Now I was starting to drift away from Transformers and go to the Lego aisle. And these sets just kind of hooked me. Like I remember growing up, I had a ton of Blacktron. A ton of Blacktron. Like Blacktron was my thing, man. I loved all the Blacktron ships. And I loved Ice Planet. So like I went and I was like, okay, let's look at space. And I see it and there's this whole giant section of Toys R Us that's devoted to Lego Star Wars. And then over on the side is this little tiny little covet where it's nothing but Space Galaxy Squad. And they appealed to me because number one, they were a lot cheaper than Star Wars Legos.
Yes, they were.
Yes, they were.
Some
Man,
things never change.
and let me tell you right now, an original theme makes things very affordable if you really like it.
Mhm.
So they were much cheaper than Star Wars. They were in stock pretty much constantly, which we'll get into a little bit later. And honestly, the first thing I bought, I built and I loved it and I thought it was great. And it's still one of my favorite sets to this day. And it just hooked me and I just started slowly accumulating the sets piece by piece, until a point where uh I got married, I had a daughter, and all of my money went somewhere else for a couple of years. You know, those protective little shells you put on your children that
Yes.
stop things flying at you. But yeah, I like the first set I bought was the Swarm Interceptor, which was a
Mhm.
2013 set. It was basically a strike fighter. It was a space starfighter. It looked like an X-wing fighter, but it didn't do the X, you know, it didn't do the X foils or anything like that. But it looked cool and it was really affordable. We're back. I lost my camera for a minute, so I can continue on with my story. I had just baby proofed my house. I was raising a baby and a teenager at that point. And I was freshly married, so money was tight. So we had to find a way to stretch the best bang for your buck. And this series was, at that time, one of the best ways to stretch a bang for a buck.
Mhm.
These swarm interceptors, I had, I think, almost a full squadron of them at one point before I ended up, and this is my regret to this day, is I ended up breaking a bunch of them down and using them for other things. Like years later, I
Mhm.
could probably like go through my mounds of stuff and refine the parts and re-put them back together. That would be quite the project, and maybe I'll do that someday. But to me, the interceptor was the key to the, you know, that opened the door, and I just started accumulating them from there.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
So, so jumping right in, first thing we're going to talk about is basically what the general idea of the theme was. So Galaxy Squad was effectively humans, like galactic marine type guys from Earth, with robot companions that were divided into four different teams. So there was red team, blue team, green team, orange team. Those were the different squads. Each squad had their own robot assigned to them, and that robot was in pretty much almost was in the sets that were assigned to that squad.
Yeah,
They fought against these like insectoid aliens. Were they called? What are the Beetlezoids?
Bugoids.
Bugoids. Yes,
Boys.
bugoids. So they were the Bugoids. Their vehicles looked like Earth-based insects. Like there was a big mosquito fighter that looked really cool. There was the big crawler-like beetle thing that looked awesome. There was a lot of really cool sets.
This
And
one
the
that really caught my eye.
and the minifigures are fantastic.
Yes, the
Like
Yes.
minifigures uber
a
detailed.
there's not a bad minifigure in this line.
No.
None. None of these,
Um,
there's not a single one. And yeah, like you said, it was really built around the idea of some sort of bug versus some sort of space marine.
mhm.
And, you know, I am a huge sci-fi geek, so instantly in my brain I'm thinking, you know, would you like to know more? It's time to, you know, it's Starship Troopers. You can see that kind of thing, like, oh, it's
Yes.
kind of cool. And the other thing I found was is that as time went on, I realized that the Marines, the ADU Corps, the Alien Defense Unit, they were also in the theme before Alien Conquest. So what I found was that Alien Conquest ADU figures, especially the little Marine guys,
Mhm.
they're really cheap on Bricklink at the time. Like
Yep.
they were very cheap. So it was very easy to just go ahead and get squats and you
Mhm.
know try to build it out a little bit more.
So Galaxy Squad ran 1 year, ran 2013, the only year that theme existed. It had an initial wave of 6 sets in the winter. In the summer wave, they had another four, and there was two polybags. So there was 12 total sets over the course of 1 year for Galaxy Squad. Very short-lived. Very short-lived. And we'll get into kind of why that is when we get to Legacy, but talking now about the sets and what made them so great. I think Scott, you kind of already started addressing a little bit. These were really cool looking builds, and the main thing that was attractive for them was their price. The Star Wars sets are always very expensive. The Galaxy Squad sets, like the Swarm Interceptor, was $20. You got a really cool looking spaceship, you got the Galactic Marine guy, and you got a bug for him to fight. That's perfect. You don't really see that nowadays either. Like back then, those sets were they were really good value.
I mean, even now when you look at battle packs in Star Wars, not counting the Disney tax, they
Hmm.
still do not compare to some of the stuff you can pull off in some of these low price Galaxy Squad sets at the time.
No.
Like, I mean, the $15 clone packs were great. Yes,
Hmm.
I went heavy on those. Yes, I spent a lot of money on those. But I spent a lot of money on this first before, you know, eventually,
Hmm.
you know, my salary recovered, my spending budget recovered, all that jazz. So I was able to, you know, eventually take all of that in and switch over. Unfortunately, as you said, it was only 1 year. So once the year was up, I had no choice. I had to go to Star Wars if I wanted to do anything space.
Hmm.
We'll get into it with Legacy a little bit, and I don't want to say that it was a complete sacrifice to appease Lucas, but I wonder partly in the back of my head, I'm like, did this just not get great stuff because they wanted to push Star Wars more, kind of
Hmm.
thing.
I don't know if it was that. I mean, well, obviously we'll go into it more later, but like I've had some thoughts about why it only lasted a year. But looking at these sets, it has everything that you're kind of looking for in a theme. Like, you got your heroes, you got your villains, and you get some amazing vehicles for both sides. Usually with current superhero sets, you get a superhero vehicle and a little side build for the villain, if anything. Like I'm thinking back to when like Guardians of the Galaxy came out. You had the Milano, and then you had Ronan's small, dinky little ship. That
Oh,
wasn't the case.
the Necrocraft, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
This wasn't the case, but it's like these insectoids were decent. Like they were comparable to the hero side, which really appeals to me now. Like you don't see that much anymore.
And
No, you really don't.
the other thing too to great that was great about this was it wasn't so, on a lot of these sets, like even in the mid tier, before you get to the high tier,
Hmm.
you weren't buying just one vehicle. You were
No.
Nope.
buying two.
Hmm.
Because a lot of these sets had that rare ability where they could split and be separate entities of themselves, but still be part of the playset.
Yes.
Like
Hmm.
the big one that stuck out for me was the Vermin Vaporizer, which
Yep.
was it was about a $50 set, but you got a tank, awesome. It had the front armor, everything else, and was fighting the bugs. But if you wanted to, you could detach the turret, and the turret turned into its own mech, and
Which
the
was
turret could
sweet.
walk around separately
Oh,
around the tank.
what was the name of the blue tank
The
that had the
Galactic Titan.
yeah, the Galactic Titan. It was a blue craft. And by the way, also color scheme on these was great. They were
Spot
all
on.
they
Yeah,
were primarily white with the light gray. And then what helped distinguish the squads and the vehicles between each other was there was different colors associated. So like there was white with green, white with orange, white with red, white with blue. And the Galactic Titan was basically a giant crawler tank that
yeah,
could detach, and the top of this tank would come off and it turned into its own like mega shuttle. And it was so sweet.
yeah. And it really it was a great set. I mean, there are debates about which faction was the best. To me, Orange was the best faction, just
Oh yeah.
simply because of the Eradicator mech. The Eradicator mech is by far and away my favorite thing, and it's still the mid-tier set. I'm huge on mechs. I'm huge on robots. We figured it out during Star Wars, but this thing was just it was just a fun build, and you could do so much with it. Where you could you could transform it, you can move it around a little bit, you can have all these different facts with it, and then they gave you two full-size bugs to fight with it on
And
top of it.
one of the other cool things is that each squad had their own associated kind of like skill set.
Yep.
Really caught
Like,
my eye when I was doing the research.
yep, like red team was more based on speed. Blue team was more just kind of like what are they like command, I think it was.
Kind of
Blue
like,
team is strategy and technology. They had the
Yep,
best technology.
yep,
Orange team was pure firepower, which was, my thing. If
yep.
you've ever played a video game with me, you know I love heavy weapons.
I see it
Um,
now.
yeah, green is defense and artillery,
Hmm.
which is why I love the tank that turns into the mech.
Hmm.
And red team was pure speed, was designed for speed.
Yep,
So it was meant to take all four facets of battle and then have them coordinate and work together.
correct. Which is sweet. And again, the prices for these sets were affordable.
Yes.
And unfortunately, now in the aftermarket, a lot of the Galaxy Squad sets you can buy a lot of them for less than what they retailed for on like Bricklink and eBay if you find them, because a lot of people just kind of want to get rid of them. And you also find them a lot in bulk part slots, which is also kind of sad for this theme. Um, Getting into Legacy now, because I think this is where we can kind of jump in a little bit. Why did Galaxy Squad only go a year?
Hmm.
If you go into like Reddit forums and various Lego community sites, you will constantly see people bringing up the fact that Galaxy Squad did not sell well. And that's due in part because it did not.
No.
The sets were constantly on clearance. They did not sell, unfortunately. As cool as they were, they did not sell at all.
I feel guilty for saying it, but like my biggest cash in was when Toys R Us closed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were the last things to go.
They were
Hmm.
still there when Toys R Us closed.
Yeah,
Yes, in abundance.
because no one was
Jeez.
buying
I
them.
remember my Toys R Us closed in like 2017 or something, 2016, 2017,
Yeah, it's
and they were
it.
still there.
They
Wow.
just weren't going anywhere.
They were not going, and it was you know the classic I'm kicking myself thing. I never bought the Galactic Titan,
Hmm.
thinking, I'll wait, I'll wait. The first day Toys R Us announced its clearance, I went to go get it, thinking it's there, and someone had just basically gone through and pilfered all the heavy sets. So
Yep.
I never got the Titan, which burns me to this day, but I can live with it because obviously there's so many other sets that have come along over the years.
Hmm.
But yeah, the biggest legacy for me was unfortunately it was the last real Lego space, as we
Hmm.
said at the opening. It is the only original space theme that had a set that had over 1,000 pieces.
Yep.
Is it
It
really?
is.
Wow.
It
It
is.
is.
The Titan is the only set under the space label
Okay.
that is over 1,000 pieces. So
Hmm.
like the icon sets that we've been enjoying with the Blacktron and with
They
the
don't count.
Galactic, they don't count. They're not space themed. They're icon themed.
This year we're
This
all
one,
city.
yeah,
And now here's the other thing with Galaxy Squad. Would Galaxy Squad, had it sold better, gotten a year two? The answer to that is no.
no,
And the reason for that is because Galaxy Squad was itself a sequel theme.
Yeah.
Because if you are familiar with Lego lore, you will know that Monster Fighters was 2012, predated Galaxy Squad by a year. The Monster Fighters theme ended at the end of the year with like the Lego comics and whatnot that they were doing in the club magazines, with Vampire Castle basically blowing up and emitting a beam of light into space, which then attracted the Bugoids towards Earth. That then required the Galaxy Squad to be deployed to fight them off. Galaxy Squad's main character on the blue team, on Blue Squad, was the character by the name of Solomon Blaze. Solomon Blaze reappeared 1 year later in the Ultra Agents theme in 2014, where he was the head of the Ultra Agents.
yep,
And the lore story behind it was that once the Bugoids had been defeated by the Galaxy Squad, they returned to Earth, and Solomon Blaze joined the Ultra Agents, where Ultra Agents took place years later because Blaze wasn't that old in the Galaxy Squad lore, but he was now the head agent of the Ultra Agents. So it was like Ultra Agents was a sequel to Galaxy Squad. So there was never a plan for Galaxy Squad to have a second year. It was never going to happen. It was never planned that way. Effectively, Monster Fighters, Galaxy Squad, and Ultra Agents acted as one singular 3 year Big Bang theme, like Lego usually used to do. A lot of times, people who might not know this, Lego would do when they had a concept they would create, they would put it out for a year and they would let that theme run for 3 years. And at a 3 year lifespan, they would retire the theme and then something else would take over. Like Ninjago was one of those themes that just kind of broke the mold. Like that and Bionicle, they were never meant to go as long as they did. There was just so much fan demand and the sets sold so well that they couldn't take them off the shelves. They had to just keep going.
yep.
Although Ninjago did get a year break before it came back again because Chima was not it. Um, Future episode on them. Um, but so Galaxy Squad, yes, the sets didn't sell well, but that was not the reason that theme did not continue. The reason that theme didn't continue was because it was never planned to. It was part of a 3 year arcing story that they told in the Lego Club magazines, which I think is interesting, but I also think kind of hindered it because
Yeah.
those comics were not like you had to, yeah, sure, you only got those comics if your family or you yourself signed up to get them.
I would say this with it. If it had the backing of Ninjago, like Ninjago did with a TV show,
Hmm.
you're going to introduce Lego Space Combat in a
Oh
TV
my
show,
God.
it would,
Do you
yo,
imagine like it just the story that you told right there, just that quick part, it would be
Mhm.
an amazing trilogy of films or even trilogy of shows. Like
Animated shorts, yeah.
it would be amazing to watch. And it's a great story, but it was like you said, it's hindered by the fact that it was hidden within the magazine.
Hmm.
And I
and
didn't
yeah,
know that it was connected. Like in the research, I found it was connected to Monster Fighters, but I didn't realize it was connected to Ultra Agents as well.
Yeah.
I had
It's
forgotten
just a
about Ultra Agents.
solid storyline, honestly, especially stick with that one character. And it makes me think about how, for the longest time, we struggled to get a Lego movie itself. And then we finally got the Lego movie, and then
Mhm.
hearing about like the behind the scenes, all the producers can't come up with the story. They could easily just take this story and then just kind of revamp it for the modern age, which would be really cool. I wish they would do
Try
that, but
that.
it's never going to happen.
No.
No.
But I
Um,
think a big
Uh,
part why they didn't do a show, which we'll probably get more into in the next section, maybe this is a segue, is because of Clone Wars. There was already that space battle show out within like Cartoon Network, and like that's where primarily Lego shows aired was on Cartoon Network.
mhm.
I mean, the other thing with that too is if you look at the year Galaxy Squad was out, it was 12 sets versus 42
Yeah.
for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Obviously, Star Wars is going to get more attention to a child's eye because it has the Star Wars logo.
It's Star
But not
Wars.
only that, here's this giant wall of all these sets that you can get, and then here's these 12.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They weren't
And
marketed as well.
no, it was not a fair. It was not a fair market share. It was a sub theme. I get that. It was a continuation of a story I did not know because I didn't read the magazine.
Exactly.
I was looking at it from I'm new to this. This is kind of cool. I wish they would have marketed it better.
Well,
I
like
think it.
looking on the shelves, you wouldn't like had take Life magazine out of the picture, you would have no connection between the two unless you knew the minifigure's name.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And you take that minifigure away, there's no connection at all. Monster Fighters, Space Battle. There's
And
really no true connection
well,
there.
and Solomon Blaze does not appear in Monster Fighters. He's not in
Does it?
that theme at no,
no,
Oh,
he's not in it.
even
The,
more so why there's no connection.
and even then, like the connection between Galaxy Squad and Ultra Agents, 90, probably like 99% of people buying those sets aren't paying attention to the names of the characters of the boxes. They're like, look at the cool spaceship fighting the big bug. Like that's what they're like. Nobody was piecing that together at all at the time for the most part.
no.
But it was like I think part of the reason why that like that 3 year theme, like people like, why didn't we get more Galaxy Squad? It was I don't even think the idea of making it into a TV show was even a thing. Like that story was just relegated because at that point you're right, Cam, you're competing against Clone Wars.
I mean, let's look at it from the practical perspective of you're looking at sets that debuted 6 months before the year, and you're
Yep.
looking at sets that debuted 6 months after the year. So you're looking along a 2 year arc.
Hmm.
Galaxy Squad had 12 sets. In between look at it from a 2012, 2013, 2014 perspective, Star Wars had 125
That's a lot.
sets
That's a
Can't compete
lot.
with that.
in
And like,
3 years.
With arguably way more identifiable characters
yes,
and builds because of the TV shows and movies.
not just
Right.
identifiable, but different characters. Like you get so many different kinds of characters within Star Wars because like you get the droids, you get the aliens, you get the good guys, bad guys. Like there's so many different types of characters. And yes, there's the Insectoid where you get all the different characters there. Both all of the space characters, they're all in the same suit, just different colors, except for the robots.
Mhm.
They were a little bit different, but still similar. They're and like you said, they all had their own color, but it was mainly a white base set. Whereas with Star Wars, many different colors, many different shapes of ships. You get not just ships, you get locations, good, evil. There's just so much within Star Wars, it's hard to compete against it.
But also in the same sense too, you're looking at the tail end of Clone Wars,
Mhm.
you're looking at the start of Rebels, and really in 2013, the same year that this was out, Lego made the incredibly profitable decision to start doing battle packs
Yep.
because the battle pack started in 2013 really.
Mhm.
They had a little bit of a thing. You had the Planet series in 2013 which was also wildly
Yes.
popular.
Those were cool. I loved those.
And then, you explode in 2014 with the Ghost, the Phantom, clone troopers coming out the wazoo, all the different
Hmm.
clone packs and everything else. So really, yeah, it was
It wasn't
it's a
given its time to shine.
no, it wasn't given its time to shine. It definitely deserved a little bit more attention, but it was running into a commercial juggernaut because at that point Lego had finally figured out how to do Lego Star Wars. They
Hmm.
didn't understand it at first during the movies, but when it started becoming a little like they would get little nibbles along the year, of new series and new shows, Lego finally figured out, we can fill these blocks by putting out these really cool troop builders and planet builders and all these little subsequent sets.
Right.
Yep.
And they just sprinkled them through the year, and it just kept the money in. And yeah, they never, it had never had a shot. We now know it was only for a year, but it could not stack up to that kind of power
Hmm.
And even
as far as competition.
outside of Star Wars, like there's so many other themes going on at that time. I mean, superhero was starting to get its rhythm because Marvel had all the movies coming out at the time, and then DC was doing the Justice League sets. There
Man
was
of
just
Steel came out the same year that Galaxy Squad released.
so
Yeah.
like there's a lot of other external property grabbing people's attention. So when they went to the store, they wanted to go get a Star Wars set, get a DC set, get a Superman, get a Captain America set. Like that's what was grabbing people's attention. And Lego, I guess, wanted sets for their own IP just because they could probably save money. Of course, when it's internally grown, they're going to save a little bit of money instead of paying for the IP.
Hmm.
But they didn't want to invest so much that it could potentially be at a loss,
Yeah.
which makes sense from a business standpoint. Put out a theme that they didn't have to spend a lot of money on, and they probably either broke even or just a little bit profit. But it makes sense why they didn't invest too much into it because it would have been hard to compete against
Yeah.
the IP that they were paying for.
And then even more to the point, let's say if they had had one more year, you know what the buzzsaw they would have run into? The Force Awakens.
Hmm.
The Force
Wow.
Awakens was 2016. You want to talk about
2015.
15.
2015.
it started 2015. You're right, 2015.
Yep.
Force Awakens was 2015. So look at it from this perspective. 2012 in Star Wars, 42 sets. 2013, 40 sets. 2014, 40 sets. 2015, 66 sets of Star Wars. I mean,
It's hard to compete.
and it's
I mean,
impossible to compete.
and if you want to add on to that, 2015 was Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
And if you're a little kid, if you're a kid going to the Lego store, what are you thinking of? Force Awakens, Age of Ultron, Avengers, Superman. Like, there were so many different prominent IPs getting attention that Galaxy Squad and honestly Monster Fighters and well, actually not really. Monster Fighters did pretty well.
Yeah.
But like Galaxy Squad was an afterthought. Like it was caught in that weird transition period between Clone Wars and Rebels. The battle packs were just hitting the scene, so it's like Star Wars was dominating, and it was
Yeah.
just like the only way that you were going to care about those sets and the story in those sets was by having the magazine. And I had the magazine, and even that didn't make me care about them at all. Like they were cool. I liked the look of them, but I was more concerned with, hey Ma, I want the Man of Steel set that comes with the Henry Cavill Superman and the General's Eye. Like I
Yeah.
want that. That's what I want.
I mean,
Right.
if you're if you're any kind of fan at all, if you're going to hold up a set of Han Solo, then you're going to hold up a set up of Age of Ultron, and then you're going to hold up a set of Galaxy Squad, you're going to gravitate towards the two and the other
Correct.
one's
Oh
going
yeah.
to be on the aside. And yeah, it
Now,
is. It's just it was a great theme. I was sad to see it go, and
mhm.
honestly, I really think that the dominance of Star Wars and the arrival of Marvel and DC killed space.
Yeah, I think you're totally correct with that.
I
They had
think
to they had to devote so many resources to doing these blockbuster IPs that they didn't have anything left for Space Team, and the Space Team had to call it a day
And
until we started getting the nostalgia thing going.
well, one
and
part
I
I
also
think
think one of the other things as well is Ninjago has
that's what
been
I was just about to say.
not only has Ninjago been, in my opinion, I've said it multiple times, Lego's greatest theme ever,
Yes.
in my opinion. Has it been that? It has subsequently killed multiple themes along the way because
Yes.
of the TV show. Like the TV show, it got the theatrically released movie. We're getting another movie at some point that I'm allegedly is going to be live action. I don't know what's going on with that, but who knows? But like Ninjago itself has,
I mean, there's what 20 plus sub themes to Ninjago?
I
yeah,
think so.
like,
But like
and now Ninjago has a legacy theme like the Infinity Saga. Like Ninjago, I feel like the popularity of Ninjago, the Lego, like for fans of Lego that just loved original themes, your attention was on that
Yeah.
because it had the TV show and everything else. Like Monster Fighters is cool because you had the different ooh,
classic
like
monsters.
here's some cool updated monster molds that we hadn't gotten since like the Studios theme.
Hmm.
And then Galaxy Squad comes around. It was kind of like, yeah, we have Star Wars, like whatever. Ninjago still here. Like then Ninjago, I think the reason there wasn't any sort of animated shorts or anything for that was because that budget internally at Lego went to Ninjago.
Well, here's what
Well,
happened. In 2013, when Galaxy Squad came out, that was Ninjago's smallest year at 9 sets.
Hmm.
And it started in 2011. So 2011, 2012, 2013. They were probably expecting, or they had planned initially for Ninjago to end
And
with the
they
three
did. It was
year.
called the final battle.
Exactly. But then it probably changed, like probably middle of the second year, they're like, we need to do more Ninjago. So that's probably why they didn't devote much time marketing it in 2013 because they had planned for more Ninjago. So they probably want to save their budget for the future of Ninjago.
I mean, you can see like you can watch the I guess the evolution of the series, and you can watch the evolution of the cartoon.
Hmm.
And like all good themes, it takes a couple years to get some wind in those sails.
Hmm.
If you're going to stand out and be a long-standing theme, that's the only reason I think why we still have Super Mario is because I think they're trying to let see if it's just going to grow, see if it's going to go there. And I don't
No,
think it is because man, am I finding Mario everywhere on clearance lately.
Yeah.
that's a topic for another day. But I,
Yeah,
what the problem with Mario is, I think people wanted minifigs from the beginning, and since they didn't get it, they're just going to cry about it until they get it, and it's not going to happen. So everything else was doomed from the start. Yes, JJ, put your hand down.
Um, Wrapping up though,
Yes.
the legacy of Galaxy Squad. I
it was.
definitely think this theme is remembered fondly.
I do too. I I loved it. I thought it was a nice, easy, original theme. It was had a lot of fun sets. The
Hmm.
builds were fun. It made it very easy to collect because it was very affordable.
Yep.
I wish that it got more. I would love to see them bring something like of a tribute back to it, maybe.
Meth.
That would be cool.
Or like, well, wasn't the Beetlezoid kind of a throwback to the Bugoids in the
The
Space CMF?
I feel like there's like there's
sorta.
hints always lately.
Kind of.
Mhm. But I
Like
feel
there's
like
yeah, there's a few tributes
mhm.
like because it could have because the Alien Conquest ones, if you look at the aliens from Alien Conquest and then you look at the Bugoids, there's no catch. If you look at the Space CMF, then yeah, he looks a lot like a Bugoid.
Hmm.
I just, I would love to get more of it. I think they could, with how parts have evolved and building techniques have evolved,
Oh yeah.
I think they could have easily done some new adaptations of some of these sets and they would have made money. Just put them under Space City.
Yeah.
Give them a revamp, give them a rebuild with some new features to them. They'll sell.
When I think about the legacy of Galaxy Squad, I think it's a fondly remembered theme when you remember it because it was just there and gone in a flash. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I see, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, oh, I remember these Galaxy Squad sets. These were fun. Like, that's what I think of. But like, it's not a theme that is constantly like in your like in the back of your head.
No,
Like when you see them, you're like, oh, I remember those. Those were fun. But like you remember it fondly when you remember them. That's how I think Galaxy Squad's like legacy is gonna end up being cemented as.
The way I
so
look at it is if you got them at the time, you really appreciated them.
Hmm.
And if you see them after the fact, the thought process, like for me, is I wish I had gotten some because they looked like I would have had fun with them as a kid.
Hmm.
So like it's the wave of sets that if you had them at the time, you loved them. If you see them after the fact, oh, that would have been cool to have, but you're not 100% heartbroken you don't have it because there wasn't a whole differentiating factor from that wave. It looked like it was space sets, but there really wasn't something that kind of differentiated enough from the entire space, like all the space themes. That's probably not going to rank in the top of the space themes.
no,
Hmm.
no, it's not.
So
To
like
me,
it's a great theme, but it's not going to be the first theme people want to gravitate towards. It would be if you had fun with them at the time, but after the fact, like, oh, that would have been cool to have, but like I'm not going to miss it. Like you said earlier, Scott, you got some sets that you wanted. There was the one that you never got. You waited too long, but it's not that upsetting to you. You didn't get it.
no, it's there are sets I can name off the top of my tongue right now that I regret that are older than this that I regret never getting. And it was largely because it was my dark period when I wasn't collecting Lego. But even still, sets have passed me in time that I would want a lot more than I would want a Galaxy Squad Titan tank. Like it's a cool tank. It's cool. When you guys asked me to think of a theme, I didn't want to be, me and automatically say castle because I'm
Or Lord
sure
of the
you were
Rings.
or Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna go like right for the castle, like for Black Knights or for Wolfpack or something like that. I wanted to really think about it, and I was thinking, what made me love Lego, and it goes to the Lord of the Rings. And I'll admit, Galaxy Squad was the second thing that got me in the door. Obviously, my tastes have widened substantially since then. I'm
Mhm.
much more in certain other areas that have nothing at all to do with space. But yeah, it was a fun set. I remembered it fondly just because I think it was like the second or third set I bought when I first came back. So it was the first thing where I didn't specifically go default Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is everything to me, nothing like that. It was, okay, I did the Lord of the Rings, but what did I first buy after? And it was Galaxies. It was Galaxy.
Mhm.
It was this little snub fighter that I loved building, and I would zoom it around the house, and I would zoom it around my baby, and she would try to grab it and destroy it, and just for fun stuff like that. But yeah, this was a fun little throwback theme for me.
Me, I think what I'll remember Galaxy Squad for now is it brought you into Lego. If it hadn't brought you into Lego, I wouldn't have joined ROCLUG.
This wouldn't have
And then this
existed.
And you
podcast wouldn't
wouldn't
be
have
happening.
and you wouldn't have met JJ. I saw the Q&A. I was very disappointed in both of you. You did not
Okay,
bring in the proper
I,
component that
I
formed the
met JJ
super
before
team.
ROCLUG.
But who brought you more together?
It was him.
Gina,
It was Scott. He's totally
Gina,
right.
Gina.
Gina and Scott.
Yeah,
Scott
Fair.
more
Gina and
like
Scott
50-50.
brought you and me closer together.
Gina got the shout out. I got left on the curb, holding the bag, waiting for the
Hey,
pickup.
you've been on twice now. She hasn't been
Yes,
on yet.
How did that happen, by the way?
We're figuring that out. She'll
happens.
be
It
on here soon,
happens.
don't you
Yes,
worry.
we'll make sure to have Gina on.
All right.
With this nicely being wrapped up now, though, thank you for all for tuning in for the first episode of Brick Hour Time Capsule. These are going to be monthly, so this is coming out. You will not see another one until February, and then another one in March. And again, we said what, third Tuesday every month? We were saying yes,
Tuesday every
yes,
month.
third Tuesday every month. So this will be coming out 21st. You'll see the next one in February, mid-March, going on and so forth. We may be teasing that the one in February has something to do with a big event in February, specifically February the 9th, that's
They just
taking
give it away.
place in New Orleans.
Okay, you're giving them enough clues.
Yeah, so that
All
theme
right.
may be in some ways tied to that, but that's all we're gonna say. So,
Before I
if you've
forget,
not already,
special shout out to BrickBoy for designing the new logo for the time capsule,
thank
and
you.
another shout out to Omega for designing the new intro and outro, especially for the time capsule.
Yes, thank you both for that. You are both awesome.
And may I say thank you both for letting me come on and just talk about what has become my almost my third child, as it were. We're not going to discuss
Don't
what's
let your
off
other
camera
children
over
hear
here.
about that.
Galaxy
Well,
Squad
they're gonna
is
watch it
third.
now. Your other children are gonna
Oh
watch it and be
no.
like, "What are you doing?"
Now
My,
cemented in internet history, Galaxy Squad is Scott's third child.
oh no, Lego. Galaxy.
Oh, they could say
Oh,
Galaxy
okay.
Squad.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot more. That makes more sense. Okay, that makes more sense.
My kids know that if everybody in my family knows if the house sits on fire, I'm saving all their lives first. But if I get a chance, I'm running back in for my minifig bins.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. I'll buy you a new
Um,
house.
What's a third degree burn for your hobby?
now that we've gone totally off the rails, thank you all for watching. If you've not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you get notified when all new episodes go live.
Hit that subscribe, hit that notify.
It's
Thank you.
Fridays anymore.
Like the next episode of the Brick Hour podcast, which will be coming out this upcoming Friday, and the next episode of Brick Hour Time Capsule, which will be coming out next month. We are so very excited for a lot of the stuff we have coming up. You are not going to want to miss out. There's a ton of cool stuff coming. In the description is also a link to our Instagram account where we've been posting all kinds of funny memes that Cam has been loving that he doesn't see because he doesn't check the draft folder. Um, you can also find the link to
I'm sorry.
yeah, right. You can also find the link to my Instagram, Langster Builds, where I've been doing all the updates on my beautiful bat cave that's back there. So we will see everybody in the next episode of the Brick Hour podcast and the next episode of Time Capsule. Have a great night. Happy building.